Well, the controversial merger between the PGA Tour and the Saudi-backed LIV Golf League is causing backlash.
That's right. Among those outraged, families of 9/11 victims. The organization 9/11 Families United released a statement that said, in part, quote, Saudi operatives played a role in the 9/11 terrorist attacks, and now it's bankrolling all of professional golf. PGA Tour leaders should be ashamed of their hypocrisy and greed, end quote. Meanwhile, we're hearing a different tone from some professional golfers.
I'm not about to stop playing golf because the entity that I play for has joined forces with the Saudi government.
Kristen Breitweiser joins us now. Her husband was killed in the September 11th attacks. Since then, Kristen has dedicated her life to educating and fighting for families affected by 9/11. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure that it's always difficult to have your family's tragedy, our nation's tragedy, back in the news. Talk to us about this in particular and what it means to you. Just months ago, PGA Commissioner Jay Moynihan said he didn't expect that there was going to be a partnership, let alone a truce with LIV. What's your response?
You know, obviously the 9/11 families are very disappointed. We're feeling betrayed. It turns out that the PGA is an organization that is unprincipled. And in many ways, it feels like they used the 9/11 families to further and exact a better deal for themselves with the Saudis, which is obviously disappointing. More than anything, I think this just is another betrayal in a long line of betrayals that the 9/11 families have unfortunately become very used to in the wake of the murder of our loved ones 20 years ago, whether it's presidents, members of Congress, corporations in America, or the PGA Tour. The 9/11 families are used to Saudi money trumping morals and murder. And in our case, the murder of our 3,000 loved ones.
Kristen, it's heartbreaking to hear you say that you and other 9/11 families feel used by the PGA in this instance. What do you say to the professional golfers who are welcoming this deal and saying that, look, they're playing a sport and they're not really getting involved in what the Saudi government does and it has nothing to do with them? What do you say to those golfers?
To me, it just speaks to a lack of a moral compass. I think that there's too much normalization in our country, whether it's in sports, whether it's in Congress with selling weapons deals, whether it's presidents cutting lucrative deals for themselves or members of administrations cutting lucrative deals for themselves with the Saudis when they leave office. There's a normalization of the past behavior of the Saudis, the role that the Saudis undertook in underwriting terrorism. And until the Saudis are willing to come forward, take responsibility for that role, I don't think it's a healthy thing for any country, for any organization, for any corporation, for any member of Congress, for any president to look the other way and to not acknowledge that role and recognize that as a world, we should not be supporting or aligning ourselves with any nation that underwrites terrorism and contributes to the murder of innocent people or civilians in terrorist attacks. It's my opinion that the Saudi kingdom had a role in the 9/11 attacks that killed my husband. We have a court case in New York that lays out an awful lot of evidence and information. Some of that information was shared with the PGA. They know firsthand who they're aligning with, and that's a huge disappointment. More than anything, there's a lot of talk about sport washing and the Saudis trying to use golf as a mechanism to cleanse their reputation and their image in the world for their murderous past. To me, I'm thinking that what we would like, what the 9/11 families would like, is a sit-down, face-to-face meeting with Yasir Ramayan so that he can listen to us and hear us, and that he can atone for the Saudi role in the 9/11 attacks. To me, I think that would go a long way in the Saudis recognizing culpability in the attacks and taking responsibility for their role in global terrorism.
Kristen, do you feel like your husband and the other victims of the 9/11 attacks have been forgotten by the rest of the world?
I think it's a lot more comfortable to not focus on some of the horrific things that the Saudis have undoubtedly proven to play a role in. It's obviously more pleasant to think about things like golf and And I'm sure these players just want to do what they do. But the reality is, when you normalize nations that are regimes that underwrite terrorism, you're sending a message that you condone that. And as a person whose husband was murdered on 9/11, I don't think that any nation, any organization, any athlete should ever do that. And so that's what concerns me most.
Our hearts go out to you and the other 9/11 families of victims. What you went through is not easy, and I know that what you're going through now, and even speaking out publicly, is no small task as well. But we certainly appreciate you joining us today. Kristen Breitweiser, we appreciate it.
Thank you.